Howdy, folks. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. And kind of excited to talk about today's topic. Um, Lots of interesting family dynamics happen around the holidays. Things that are, I remember one comedian saying that, the greatest thing about holidays is everybody brings, for a holiday meal, everybody brings a dish and an unresolved issue. So there can be a lot of stress and a lot of things that really can really get you down during the holidays. Um, and this new Disney movie, Encanto, came out, and my family loves it. In fact, the kids have watched it 3 times already. I caught it. I caught it on the third run. Um, Now, I do want to say that if you have not seen this movie yet, I encourage you to see it. The other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is pause this and go see the movie, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to make sense. Plus, I have a little bit of spoilers in it, and I really don't want to. I really don't want to ruin the movie for you, because it's really a great way of. It's a really great storytelling, in the way they reveal things and stuff like that. But that leads into the whole fact that I'm going to end up giving away a little bit here if you haven't seen this movie. The other reason I put the spoiler warning on this post is because I have no idea what other people are going to comment. So, just so you know, if you haven't seen the movie yet, there's a good chance that you may get some spoilers in here. So now that I've done my public service and warned y'all, I'm going to go into what it is that I wanted to talk about. Now, this story is set in Colombia, and it's about a family that lives in a magic house, and certain members of the family have magical gifts. One has super hearing, one is super strength, one has the ability to foretell the future, which leads to all kinds of problems because, sometimes people don't like to know what they're saying, what's coming. And one has emotions that affect the weather. Let's see, the one can talk to animals, which, if you ask me, is probably one of the coolest ones. I've always wondered what animals were saying. But the young girl that is the main protagonist in this, Mirabel, she doesn't have the same kind of magical gifts that her family does. A lot of members in her family do, and in some ways, it makes her really bittersweet for her because she's really happy for her cousins and her sisters that have these gifts. But it's kind of depressing for her because she doesn't. Oh yes, and there's another one of the characters, Isabella. She has the ability to make flowers bloom. So, which comes into later. So one of the big things with this movie that I saw was the inner dynamic working with here. You got one girl who's doing her best to be perfect. You got, everything she does, perfect roses, perfect flowers, Isabel. She's engaged to the perfect guy, and it's going to be the perfect marriage, and all this kind of thing. And then a huge amount of the town relies on Luisa, who has the super strength. And can't remember her name now. The one with the hearing, she knows everybody's secrets. Mirabel is kind of like the go-between all these people. And of course, the matriarch of the family, Abuela, I think her character's name was Alma. and the family name is Madrigal. I'm not even going to try with the Spanish pronunciations. I know I can do them okay, but I'm not going to be doing them consistently enough, and I don't want to have everybody laughing at me about it, so I'm just going to do it. Now, the family, the house, which is where their magic resides, has started showing cracks, and there's different things that are going on. And this is a lot like a lot of other families, where as time goes on, cracks start to show in the family, in the dynamic, because no matter how much you love each other, no matter how much things are going, there's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be these things that lie under the surface. And one of the things I really appreciated about this is they get kind of a visual of that, whereas there's these cracks in the foundation, and some of the magic is falling out of the family, powers are weakening, and that kind of thing. And to me, that was an allegory of how different kinds of stress and different kinds of interactions can cause fracturing in a family. And that magic of being a family, of having those kind of people in your life, it can be damaged by these kind of things. So that was one of the big things that I really loved about it, was there was a kind of a visual aspect to that, and it turns the movie focuses on all these things that are starting to go wrong, and how a lot of people are thinking that Mirabel is the one who's causing the problems. She's not. She's just being herself. But she's also extremely empathetic. She really strives to put herself in other people's places and to understand where they're coming from. And the whole aspect about you're in a role and you have expectations for that role, and you got to live up to those expectations. That kind of dynamic can happen in a lot of families, and it can be very damaging, both to the people who are imposing those expectations and to the people, especially to the people that the expectations are imposed upon. So here's where we're going to start getting into some of the spoilers, folks. So this is your last chance to pause out, dip out before having some things ruined. So Louisa, the super strong one, she starts to lose her strength. And by the way, the music in this thing is fantastic. The songs are wonderful. And we start to see from one of the musical numbers between Mirabel and Louisa that Louisa feels a lot of pressure. She's got to be the strong one. She can never be weak. She can never let anybody down. And that's crushing her emotionally and spiritually. And she's just feeling this pressure of everything on her. We find out that Isabel is feels a lot of pressure because she's the one that has to be perfect. Everything has to be just so. She's not allowed to step out of these lines and that kind of stuff. And there's all these expectations that are being put on everybody, and it's really starting to hurt them inside because they feel that they need to keep this bottled up. So they're not letting these emotions out. So that's dragging them down. And the whole situation with everybody in between is all bringing the family down. And in the end, of course, it's a Disney movie, and things are going to work out fairly well, as they do on average in most Disney animated movies. But the big message is that the biggest gift isn't the magical abilities that you may have, like in this family. It's the fact that you have that family, and that the community can come together. And though as individuals, they may not have these super abilities, but when everybody combines together, they can do a lot. So that's one of the big messages that I really loved about this. But the big family dynamic in there, where there was this family imposing upon itself that certain people had to be certain ways, and that was what was expected, and then that other people weren't living up to the expectations of everybody else in the family. Those kind of things, both trying to force people to live up to expectations and imposing those expectations, that does a lot to harm mental health. So, if you're dealing with these kind of things in your family, and if you're one of the people that may be putting these expectations on others, you really need to check yourself, and you really need to see what's going on. If you're one of these people that has these expectations put on you, and it's not who you want to be, it's not giving you to the things that you desire to do, then you need to speak up. It can be hard, it can be painful, it can be a lot of conflict when this happens. But if you start from the position that, this is a group of people that love each other and care about each other, they just may be going about it in a way that's not healthy, as far as emotionally, mentally, then it can get worked out. It may be difficult, it may be painful. But that's one of the other big things about the movie, is that it shows that when you can get these things out in the open and allow things to develop more naturally rather than how they're being imposed, that magic can come back, that things can go to be kind of the way that you would like them to be. So I really encourage you, if you're stuck in a family dynamic where you're feeling you have to be a certain way, and you need, and you feel like it's stifling you, that it's pushing pressure on you, I encourage you to speak up. I also encourage you to be aware that some people may not be willing to accept that. And if that's the case, then you need to decide for your own mental health what you're going to do from here. Are you going to continue to allow this kind of a situation to wear on your mental health, to really impose that kind of strain on yourself? Because it's not going to do you any good. It's gonna just continue to cause problems for you. And in Army parlance, my advice would be to cut sling load. If people aren't willing to work with you, if they're not willing to accept you, then just walk away, drop it. Because the people that will appreciate you for who you are and who you were trying to be will find you. And the people that are meant to be those kind of people for you will be there. Now, I did a post about this. I shared an image where it was a saying, where it was talking about how the family you're born with is like your starter family, and it's up to you to find the family you're meant to be with. And it doesn't mean that they're exclusive of each other, but it does mean that you can find people that become your family. I have a lot of people like that in my life. I've been very fortunate. Some great comrades in arms that I have worked with over the years in the Army. Some artists that I have collaborated with. People who share my spiritual viewpoints that become family. So you will find family in a lot of places. It depends upon how you choose to define it. I make a very big difference between people that I consider family, people that I consider friends, and people that I consider acquaintances. Acquaintances are people I know. Friends are people that friends are people that you put an effort into engaging with. Or have, because For those of us in the military, it's kind of weird because we can go without seeing each other for 10 years, meet up to have a couple of beers, and we're sitting down, and it's like, just like, well, okay, physically, we're probably not anywhere close to where we were 10 years ago, but it'll be like it was, the friendship will get picked up and continue on just like it had been 10 years prior. It's part of the nature of that kind of a relationship and a dynamic. So that's almost like its own category. Acquaintances are people that you know, but that you don't necessarily have a lot of time and effort in building that relationship, invested in it. It's also the people that you don't necessarily go out of your way to make an effort for. It's kind of like family you always have time for. Your friends you will find time for, and your acquaintances get whatever time's left over, if there is any. So, and to me, there's a huge difference. And the people that fall into those categories aren't necessarily, especially the family one, they're not necessarily people that I am blood related to. Now, granted, a lot of blood relations fall into that. But I'll be honest, there's a lot of blood relations that I have that fall into the acquaintance category as well. For all kinds of reasons. We just never really had a lot of time around each other to get to know each other, or there's just something where we just clashed right off the bat, and we're like, you know what, we're related, we're family, I love you. I'm just going to keep my distance because I think we'll both be happier if that happens. So you keep these kind of things in mind when you're looking at these, because you may find that you're alienating some people that you had considered family, but if they really considered you family, they would find a way to work with you to understand, and it will accept you for who you are. So if you're feeling these burdens and this pressure, speak up, let people know. You've got to have that kind of ability to communicate with the people that matter to you, and if they're not willing to reciprocate that kind of communication and connection, it's time you reevaluate that relationship. Because you may have them in the family category, they may have you in the acquaintance category. So if that's the case, somebody needs to reevaluate. And be aware of those situations where you're much more invested in a relationship with persons, friendships, whatever, than they are with you, because those can lead to some very unhappy situations because you have a lot of different expectations than they do. So this open communication, that how you're feeling and what you're dealing with and that kind of thing, is important in all levels of relationships, and be them business, be the family, with your religious groups, whatever it is, that need to communicate, and to communicate effectively is a key to mental health, because if you're bottling up things inside, it's just going to eat you alive. And it can lead to all kinds of really, if you're dealing with anxiety and depression, bottling up these kind of things is definitely contraindicated. And I would highly encourage you to seek methods of communication. There's all different kinds of techniques on learning how to deal with different personality types. There's different ways to learn how to gauge what kind of personality type you have and how you should relate to other types of personality types. Some of them are based on colors. Some of them are based on other aspects. But the general thing is that how you communicate is going to be different for different types of people in different types of situations. So be mindful of that. Find a way to communicate effectively that works for you and works for the others. Because the biggest problem with communication is that you can be... what you are saying and what is being heard can often differ greatly from what you mean and what they perceive. The goal of good communication is to make sure that what you're saying accurately conveys what you mean, and what they're hearing actually conveys what what they're perceiving matches what they're hearing. Because if you're thinking oranges and they're hearing apples, there's not communication. There's exchange of information going back, but it's not communication if what is being received isn't what's being sent. So we'll probably talk more about communication on Thursday's Thoughts, and we'll probably talk some more about how communication techniques and how they can improve your mental health here on Mental Health Mondays. I do want to have a moment to remember a friend of mine who passed away on the 24th. This was a guy I knew in Fort Bragg, and I knew through the spiritual community that I was part of there. And this was one of those guys who is, I can tell you right now, if he was here, he'd be kicking us in the butt and doing his goofiest best to make us laugh, because that was the kind of guy he was. There was an accident. He got seriously hurt. There was an accident at his home. He got seriously hurt and wasn't able to recover from the injuries. He leaves behind a daughter and a pregnant fiance. And it's very difficult for me because I related to him a lot. There was a lot of different things that he was dealing with that I had prior or was at the time as well. And so there was a lot of things that we connected over. It's been a very difficult weekend for me because, you know, when someone's ill, somebody's old and infirm, you expect things. You expect to hear certain news differently. You know, it's not as an unexpected shock as it is when you hear somebody who is relatively young and in decent health, and then, you know, there's an accident. And the biggest thing that was impacting me from this, and it's on this topic that I was talking about with family dynamics, is you never know how much time you have. So don't let situations drag you down, weigh you down. Communicate with the people that matter in your life. Let them know how you feel. Let them know how you're feeling as well. Because in doing that, you're able to make the most out of the time that you have. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be working hard on in my life, as a way to honor my friend. And I have no doubt that I will end up seeing him again across the Rainbow Bridge. But just, keep in mind that you never know. You never know how much time you have. You never know how long someone is going to be in your life. So make the most of it. And let them know you care. Let them know how you're feeling. Let them know how they make you feel. And again, it can be painful when you're trying to work some of these things out, but both of you will be better for it. And you can heal your house and restore that magic to it. So with that, I'm going to say y'all have a happy, I hope y'all had a Merry Christmas and a blessed Yule. And I guess I will see you all in 2020 or 2022. Going backwards. I don't want to go back to 2020. I don't know about anybody else. So until I see you guys again for Mental Health Monday, next one will be next year. keep in mind, open and honest communication. Let's make things better. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm sorry for the spoilers, but you were warned. Watch Encanto. It really is a fantastic, fantastic movie. The music's great. The characters are, it's intriguing, and I really, really enjoyed it. And my kids are dancing around all over the place to the music. So that will be it for today's Mental Health Monday. And tomorrow for Tuesday's tips, I want to be talking a little bit about food photography, and how you can, and I'm using my cell phone for this because I want to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to get the best images if you're trying to show off the food that you've made or some spectacular meal that you're about to have at a restaurant. So going to give you guys some pointers that I learned in my photography studies and techniques that I use to really kind of bring it to the forefront. So I'll see you guys for that tomorrow. And in the meantime, peace, love, and photography. And remember, everything can make a beautiful image, including you. And by the way, you're welcome, James, and it's good to see you, brother. Hope you are well. Bye. Have a great day.